George Walker had built an empire that most people could only dream of. At 38, he was a billionaire CEO of Walker Global Holdings, admired by investors and feared by competitors. His days were filled with board meetings, international deals, and private jets. Yet every evening, he returned to a luxurious penthouse that felt painfully empty. His best friend and lawyer, Ethan Brooks, often teased him.
George, you've conquered the business world. Why haven't you conquered love? Because I already found it once and lost it.
The woman he was talking about was Clara Johnson. 8 years earlier, George had met Clara outside a small bookstore in Boston on a rainy afternoon. After slipping on the wet sidewalk and scattering his documents everywhere, he was helped by a kind young medical student who didn't recognize him as a rising businessman everyone else seemed to know.
I'm Clara.
I'm George.
Their first conversation over coffee lasted 4 hours. What started as an unexpected meeting soon turned into a beautiful relationship. Clara loved children and dreamed of becoming a pediatric doctor. George admired her compassion, something he rarely encountered in the ruthless world of business. Unlike everyone else, Clara never cared about his money. In fact, she didn't even know he was wealthy until months later, when she surprised him at work and discovered that he owned the towering headquarters she had just walked into.
You could have told me.
I was afraid you'd see me differently.
I fell in love with the man who bought me coffee in the rain, not the billionaire who owns this building.
That day, George realized he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. But life had other plans. Walker Global was offered the biggest international expansion in its history. George had to move to Europe for several months to secure the deal. He begged Clara to come with him. She wanted to, more than anything. But her pediatric residency was finally beginning, and leaving would mean giving up years of hard work. Neither of them wanted the other to sacrifice their dream. With tears in their eyes, they made the hardest decision of their lives. George kissed her forehead.
I'll always love you.
I'll always love you too.
Neither of them knew that fate had already changed everything. 3 weeks after George left, Clara collapsed during a hospital shift. The doctor smiled as she looked at the ultrasound.
Congratulations, Clara. I'm pregnant? And there's something else. 3 tiny heartbeats. You aren't having one baby. You are having triplets.
Tears filled her eyes instantly. George had to know. She tried calling him. His number had changed after his move overseas. She sent emails. No replies. She mailed letters to Walker Global's temporary European office. They were returned unopened after the company relocated during the merger. She searched every way she knew. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, George was trying just as hard to find her. The letters he mailed to her old apartment came back marked, "No forwarding address." Her phone number no longer worked. Her email remained silent. Each believed the other had chosen to walk away. Heartbroken, they stopped searching. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because they believed the other had moved on. 8 years passed. Clara gave birth to 3 beautiful daughters, Lily, Rose, and Daisy. Raising 3 children alone was never easy. She worked long hours as a pediatric doctor before opening a small community clinic that treated children regardless of their family's ability to pay. Money was scarce. Love never was. Whenever the girls asked about their father,
Mom, where is our daddy?
He was a good man.
So where is he?
I honestly don't know.
Does he love us?
If he knew you existed, he would.
on the other side of the country, George's company had become a global empire worth billions. He had everything he once dreamed of, but he never married. Every relationship ended the same way. No one could replace Clara. One Friday morning, George attended the opening of a children's hospital funded by the Walker Foundation. After the ceremony, he wandered through an art exhibition featuring drawings from children at local clinics. One picture stopped him in his tracks. It showed 3 little girls holding hands beneath a large tree. A woman stood beside them. A man in a business suit stood several steps away. Above him, written in childish handwriting, were the words, "Maybe Daddy will find us someday." George felt something tighten in his chest. A volunteer noticed him staring.
That one's from Daisy.
Daisy?
Yes, she's one of Dr. Clara Johnson's triplets.
George froze. His heart skipped a beat.
What did you say her name was?
Dr. Clara Johnson.
For a moment, the noise around him disappeared. The only name he could hear was hers. The volunteer handed him a clinic brochure. On the front was a smiling Clara surrounded by 3 identical little girls. George couldn't take his eyes off them. Their bright blue eyes looked strangely familiar. Too familiar. A question he had never imagined suddenly entered his mind. Could those little girls be mine? Clutching the brochure tightly, George walked back to his car with a racing heart. He had spent 8 years believing the love of his life was gone forever. Now, for the first time, he realized she might have been closer than he ever imagined. George Walker barely slept that night. The clinic brochure lay on his bedside table, and every time he looked at the smiling faces of Clara and the 3 little girls, the same question echoed in his mind. Could they really be my daughters? At sunrise, he canceled every meeting on his calendar. His assistant, Olivia, was stunned.
Sir, today's board meeting includes investors from London.
It can wait.
The merger review?
It can wait too.
She had worked with George for 6 years and had never heard him postpone business for personal reasons. Something important had changed. An hour later, George parked across the street from Clara's children's clinic. It was nothing like the hospitals his foundation funded. The building was small, the paint slightly faded, and the waiting room was already full of parents holding restless children. Yet everyone who walked through the doors seemed hopeful. George watched through the window as Clara moved from child to child with kindness and patience. She greeted every family with a smile. Nothing about her had changed, except she looked stronger. Life had clearly tested her. As George stood watching, 3 little girls burst through the clinic doors, laughing as they chased one another across the small garden. His heart nearly stopped. They looked so much alike, but each had her own personality. Lily carried a book under her arm and calmly reminded her sisters not to run too fast. Rose ignored the warning and raced toward the swing set. Daisy stopped to help a little boy pick up the crayons he had dropped. George couldn't take his eyes off them. Something about their smile felt strangely familiar. Just then, Rose tripped over a garden stone. Before anyone else could react, George instinctively rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground.
Easy there.
Thank you, mister.
You're welcome.
Clara looked up from the clinic entrance and froze. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. 8 years disappeared in a single heartbeat.
George?
Hello, Clara.
What are you doing here?
I needed to see you.
I think you should leave.
I understand.
He didn't argue. He simply walked back toward his car. But before he opened the door, he glanced back once more. The 3 girls were still watching him. That evening, George met Ethan.
I found Clara.
Seriously?
She has 3 daughters.
You think...
I don't know. But I have to find out.
Over the next few days, George quietly visited the neighborhood several times. He never approached the girls. Instead, he watched from a distance. He noticed little things. Lily always helped younger children. Rose climbed everything she could. Daisy smiled at everyone she met. Then one afternoon, Daisy noticed him sitting on a nearby park bench. She walked over with innocent curiosity.
Hi.
Hello.
You've been here before?
I have.
My name's Daisy.
I'm George.
She studied him for a moment.
My mommy knows you.
She does.
Are you her friend?
I hope I can be again someday.
Daisy smiled before running back to her sisters. George watched her go, unable to explain why his eyes suddenly filled with tears. Later that week, Ethan completed a quiet investigation. He returned carrying several documents.
I found Clara's medical records. They confirm she gave birth 8 years ago. Triplets? The dates match perfectly.
It still isn't proof. No. But it's enough to request a legal DNA test. I don't want lawyers involved. Then what? I'll ask Clara.
The following afternoon, George returned to the clinic after closing time. Clara stepped outside and immediately saw him waiting.
You came back.
I needed answers.
There are no answers for us anymore.
There might be.
What do you want, George?
Those girls.
What about them?
Are they mine?
You finally asked.
You mean...
They're your daughters.
The world seemed to stop. He struggled to breathe. 3 daughters, 3 little girls, 8 birthdays, 8 Christmas mornings, 8 years of bedtime stories, 8 years gone forever. His eyes filled with tears.
I didn't know.
I know.
I swear to you, Clara, I never knew.
She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of dishonesty. Instead, she saw only heartbreak. George lowered his head.
I've missed 8 years of their lives.
So have they.
George whispered the words he never imagined he would say.
I'm a father.
For the first time in his life, billion-dollar deals, luxury homes, and private jets meant absolutely nothing. All he could think about were 3 little girls who had called another day normal without ever knowing their father. As George stood there in stunned silence, 3 small voices echoed from inside the clinic.
Mom! Are you coming?
They don't know.
I understand.
This changes everything.
The door closed behind her. George remained standing alone under the evening sky, realizing that his greatest journey was no longer about building an empire. It was about earning the love of 3 daughters who had no idea the man outside was their father. The next afternoon, George returned to the clinic carrying no flowers, no expensive gifts, and no lawyers. He came alone. When Clara stepped outside after work, she folded her arms.
I told you they don't know who you are.
I know,
Then why are you here?
because I want to know them.
They've spent 8 years without a father.
And that's my greatest regret.
You don't get to walk into their lives because you suddenly discovered they exist.
I understand your anger.
Do you? Do you know what it was like raising 3 babies alone? I worked night shifts while feeding newborns. I missed meals so they could eat. I stayed awake through fevers, nightmares, and school projects. There was no one beside me. You weren't there.
If I had known, I would have been there.
Clara looked into his eyes. For the first time, she wondered if he was telling the truth. But years of pain were not easy to forget. That evening, George visited his mother, Margaret Walker. Margaret smiled as he entered.
It's nice to see my son before midnight.
Mom,
What happened?
you have grandchildren.
What?
3 granddaughters.
You're serious?
They're 8 years old.
I've dreamed about this for years. They're beautiful.
They're Clara's.
Clara, you'll fix this.
I don't know if I can.
You can. But only if you become the father they need, not the billionaire everyone else sees.
Meanwhile, Clara tucked the girls into bed. Rose smiled.
Mom, who was that nice man today?
An old friend.
He caught me before I fell. He was really nice. Mom,
Yes?
why did you look sad when you saw him?
Sometimes old memories are complicated.
The girls accepted the answer, but Lily wasn't convinced. The following morning, George met Ethan again.
I don't want a custody battle.
Good.
I don't want lawyers frightening the girls. So what's your plan?
I'm going to earn their trust. How? The old-fashioned way. Patience.
Over the next week, George quietly volunteered at the community center next to Clara's clinic. He donated books to the children's reading room, but anonymously, he repaired broken playground equipment without telling anyone who paid for it. He sponsored free meals for struggling families through the local cafe. Every good deed carried the same instruction. Do not mention my name. Clara noticed the changes around the neighborhood. When she asked who was responsible, no one knew. One Saturday afternoon, the community center hosted a family picnic. George attended as a volunteer. He wore simple jeans and a blue shirt instead of his expensive suits. For the first time in years, he looked less like a billionaire and more like an ordinary man. The triplets immediately recognized him.
It's the man from the clinic!
Hi again.
Rose waved excitedly. Lily remained cautious. Daisy smiled politely. Before Clara could stop them, Rose ran over.
Do you want to play soccer with us? For a few minutes.
I'd love to.
The game quickly became the highlight of the afternoon. George laughed harder than he had in years. Rose celebrated every goal. Daisy giggled whenever George pretended to miss the ball. Even Lily eventually smiled. Watching from a distance, Clara couldn't remember the last time she'd seen the girls laugh so freely with an adult man. It stirred emotions she wasn't ready to face. As the picnic ended, Daisy walked up to George.
You'll come back next Saturday?
I'll come if your mum says it's okay.
Daisy turned hopefully toward her mother. Clara hesitated, then quietly said,
We'll see.
It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. For George, that tiny change felt like the first crack in the wall Clara had built around her heart. As George walked away, Margaret's words echoed in his mind. Become the father they need. For the first time in years, George wasn't thinking about business meetings or billion-dollar deals. He was thinking about soccer games, bedtime stories, and 3 little girls who were slowly beginning to smile whenever they saw him. And for the first time, Clara wondered if perhaps the man she had once loved had never truly disappeared. Maybe, just maybe, he had simply been lost.